So if you only had money for one lens, do you think the Nikon 35 1.8G AFS Nikkor lens is worth it? You'll find out in this video. So when it comes to the Nikon DX AFS Nikkor 35mm 1.8G, hence the metal backing on the lens, is that I've had this lens for around almost 2 years now. And do you think, or I think, that you should use this lens if you had no money and you only had to pick one lens? Well, after using it, here are my pros and cons. Affordable price. A lot of people think when it comes to Nikon lenses you have to spend like $1,000+ to get some kind of bokeh effect, but this overall is one of the fastest bang for your buck. It is a 35mm prime lens, and my second time around and actually using it after my first review, I think, in my opinion, this is one of the best lenses that you can get. So my overall pros of this is that it's a super darn fast lens. It's 35 prime, meaning you can't zoom in and zoom out, is a fixed focal length, and overall the use of the lens itself is really sharp if you're considering upgrade from the kit lens. Because in my opinion, if you only had, let's say, $500 and you only had to pick one lens to upgrade, this is your go-to. So overall, besides having super shallow depth of field, being super sharp, and overall having a much quieter autofocus compared to the kit lens, I would say my overall use of this lens now for my professional clients now is, the cons of it is that it's still, there isn't a version of this lens with optical stabilization or vibration reduction. In other words, if you plan on hand holding this lens and micro jitters, you will definitely notice. Not so much if you're like a photographer and you're shooting with the D5000, 7000, 3000 series, but if you definitely plan on using videos, that might be an issue. And for me, when I first started, and this was the first lens that I actually bought, I had to use a lot of warp stabilizer, so be aware of that. I would say my other con of using this lens is that overall, that is the only downside I can think. It's super affordable, super sharp, especially if you come from the 18 to 50 kit lens that comes with your D5600, 5500, 3000, 7000 series, is that this is like the best. This has to be in your arsenal when it comes to kit lenses upgrades, because this was my first lens that I actually bought that didn't come with the D5200 that you're currently seeing. So I would guess my last and final gripe about this lens is that the overall focus ring itself, although it does have stops to make sure you don't go to infinity, is that you can constantly just keep turning the focus length, the focus ring, and you won't know if you're outdoors, it's cold, your hands are numb, you won't be able to see whether or not, okay, the focus ring keeps on going, or does it go back to the closer pull. So when it comes to doing focus pulls, it's a little tricky to get a hand of, versus my Sigma 17 to 50, which does have a smaller focus throw, but you can actually see with the number indicators whether or not you're going to infinity or you're going to X amount of increments. So my overall thoughts of the Nikkor 35 1.8G after actual usage in field with clients and for my own videos is that this is, if you had no money and you have a Nikon body, and there's even Canon has an equivalent of this, is that I think everyone should have a 35mm 1.8 DX lens, because between this and the 50mm for a crop body, that's a little bit too close in my opinion, depending on what you're shooting in. But if you're doing more like interview styles, you want to do more like vlog type videos, the 35mm on a crop body is roughly around 50mm as is. So that is more than enough, as well as the shallow depth of field. But you also have to be aware of that there's no vibration reduction, be aware of the focus ring. But overall, this lens is a beast considering the price that it is, like, out of the box. Like, if you're a budget filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, I still recommend this lens as something you should keep in your arsenal. And my name is Peter. You're watching Broke Visionary Collective, where we all start from nothing, but you can always create something.